Hey, Happy New Year and welcome to Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine where we talk to the founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurants. My name is Sam Oches. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. Today, I'm talking to Patrick Terry. He is the founder of P. Terry's, a burger chain based in Austin, Texas, with 16 locations around Texas and plans to grow. I'll never forget on my first trip to Austin several years ago, I drove by a P. Terry's off the highway, and I looked at this place and I thought, that's been there probably 50 years. This looks like something that is just an Austin staple for generations. P. Terry's depends on Googie architecture, which really gives it that sort of nostalgic Americana, old school vibe. But the truth is that it was just founded in 2005. Patrick had already opened a few different pizza restaurants in Texas and worked for some other restaurant companies as well. But in 2005, really wanted to start a value-oriented burger chain that wasn't just about cheaper food, but it was also about quality food. How could you get the best bang for your buck? Launched this thing as just a burger stand with no dining room, just a walk-up window in Austin, and it has now grown to 15 locations in the Austin area, one in San Marcos, and now they have plans to expand into San Antonio and other parts of Texas. What I find so fascinating about P. Terry's is not just the value orientation. So the most expensive burger on P. Terry's menu is about $4. So this is on par with a lot of the QSR brands, but it really invests in the quality of that burger. This is a really darn good burger. But what is so interesting about Patrick and his story, and you'll hear in this conversation, is how deeply committed he is, not just to value, not just to quality, but also to people. There are so many really interesting practical tips in this conversation that especially younger entrepreneurs are going to find so much help, so much advice from Patrick's words on how do you take care of your customer? How do you take care of your employee? How do you ensure a great product time and time again? And then how do you turn that into a successful business? Patrick has lots to say about that in this conversation. And from 2005 until 2019, he built up this really successful chain of burger shops around Austin. And then last year, what he did is he started to set up the brand for future success by filling out the team around him. He hired actually Todd Corver from Lark Burger, previously had also been with Whataburger and with Taco Cabana, to be the CEO of P. Terry's and carry it into that next phase of growth. So now Patrick is in more of a reflective state of mind. He can look back and see what he's built over the course of the last 15 years at P. Terry's to really re-examine what made this concept so successful. And we get to all of that and more in this conversation. And I just started by asking Patrick a little bit more about how he got into food service and how that eventually led him to opening P. Terry's.
Well, like a lot of people, I worked in the restaurant business, as a waiter and a Mexican food restaurant. I grew up in Abilene, Texas, in West Texas, and so I've always had an affinity for the business. And so in college I worked at different restaurants around the campus. I went to the University of Texas here in Austin, and then I like pizza. And the problem is when I'm in the pizza business, I eat it every day.
That's a problem?
It is. Well, it's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, sure.
But I got into the pizza business in Dallas. I was working at Tracy Lock BBDO, which is an ad agency, and that was my background. Was in UT. I majored in advertising, and I was lucky enough to get the job. But the truth is, I got bored pretty fast, and I'm used to working more hours, and so I was in account service, and I worked 8 to 5, and there just wasn't enough going on. So I opened up a pizza place that was a take and bake, similar to Papa Murphy's. I think it was probably before Papa Murphy's. I don't know. But it was a long time ago, and I branded it. I called it Capistos. I made up a name, and I spent $2,200 on a sign that was like the most money in the whole world. I was probably 22 or 23 at the time.
Wow.
It was in a strip center, and it was a pretty darn good pizza. We just took it home and baked it yourself. I sold it a few years later. Actually, a lot of viewers will remember a TGI Fridays concept called Dalt's. And I went to work for Dalt's. I left advertising because I wanted to learn the restaurant business, and I became an assistant manager at Dalt's in Sackowitz Village in Dallas. And it was a little overwhelming, but it gave me a good sense of the business. And so from then, I got into another pizza restaurant, a full service. Had a buffet and a couple of other menu items in downtown Austin when I moved here. And gosh, I loved it. I really loved it. I loved my pizza. I loved the recipe. I ate a lot of it. Customers liked it. I sold that business too. I didn't see it going anywhere, and so I started to get a little bored with it. But in the back of my mind, it was always hamburgers, fries, and shakes. And so I knew at some point I would lead to that. And a lot of it is in that for me, my personal experience was that, my best customers in the pizza business, I saw once a week. And I know when you're in college and high school and stuff, you can eat a lot more pizza than that. But I was aimed at a different consumer. And so that frustrated me. And at P. Terry's, I mean, we see the same customers a lot. They can switch it up, whether it's a hamburger or a chicken burger, or they just want to swing by and get a milkshake or something. We see a lot of people 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah. And so I'm drawn to that. And so it's one of the reasons I like the burger business.
Thinking back to the pizza restaurants too that you opened, this was the 1980s?
It was.
Okay.
It was. I had the pizza, the take and bake concept was around 82, 83.
Okay.
And then I came back and when I got into the Austin pizza scene, it was 89.
Okay. Because that was sort of the dawn of the modern pizza industry, right? Because that was when Domino's came up, and so that was when delivery really became a thing. What did you learn I guess first off, was that why you got into pizza? You saw this opportunity, it was starting to come up, but then second off, did you feel like you were kind of going head to head with some of these other guys coming up?
Yeah, I'm not that smart to know where it was headed. I just liked it. And I never felt I always had a niche. And so the big guys never really intimidated me. I was always working a particular angle. I give you a perfect example. The restaurant in Austin that had a buffet, I looked at the business in one of the bigger pizza restaurants at the time was Mr. Gatti's.
Right.
And I remember the Mr. Gatti's on the drag, which is right off the drag at UT, which is gone now. But I remember standing in there and asking, and the place was packed at lunch. And the manager was like, yeah, we do 300 so customers every day for the buffet. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people coming through. And so, my idea was, well, I'll do something along that line, but I'll try and take the quality a step up. Whether I did that or not is, up for argument. But that was the intention.
Yeah.
And then to keep around the same price, which has kind of been my MO. I think it's what I've done with hamburgers as well.
Right.
But I was never intimidated by it. But you're right. They all came in. And I will tell you, CC's was coming in at $2 a person or whatever it was back then. It was really, really inexpensive. And I didn't know how that was going to turn as well. So, but you're right. There were a lot of places. That was kind of the beginning of it all.
Of course, burgers aren't exactly a unique corner of the market.
No, it's not at all.
What was the burger scene like back then when you decided to open a burger joint?
Yeah, so, and that, of course, was on, when we opened in 2005, we found that we were on the cusp of the burger, of a lot of burger places opening up. And again, that was strictly coincidental for me. I mean, I didn't see anything coming. I just wanted to open up a hamburger stand.
Yeah.
But we always looked at we always felt like we were pitting ourselves up against the national franchises. You know, it works better for me to have a foe and go up against a foe. You know, and I'm you know, that's the guy. It's not necessarily like a bad guy. It's just that's my competitor. That's my foe. Now I'm competing against that brand, and so now you know, it's a battle. I don't know how any other way to describe it, and it isn't, you know, it's not me saying anything bad about the guy across the street. It's just me trying to, you know, outfox him,
right.
You know, come up with something different. And, you know, one of the great advantages as an individual up against a major company or a franchise, or, you know, is that they're set, you know, they're pretty much set in their ways. They've got 1,000 stores or 10,000 stores, and, you know, this is the system. And when we opened the original location, you know, we were up against, literally across the street, there were 5 major brand restaurants directly across the street from my 527 square foot drive-through restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, that no one had ever heard of and I'd never opened.
Right.
And now, you know, 14 years later, 4 out of the 5 are gone. And literally, I mean, it was just us against them. But, you know, when an 18-wheeler pulls up every 4 days and they open the back and the frost comes out because it's, you know, pretty much frozen, and they're pulled down a pallet with that 4-day delivery, and you're sitting there, you know, my produce company was open 7 days a week. And one, I wanted everything fresh, but 2, I didn't have the room, which turned out to be this amazing benefit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we just didn't have the space, and so we had to take deliveries, you know, almost every day.
Forced your hand.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
It really did. It turned out to be, and then when you open the second store with a little bit more room, you don't all of a sudden say, oh, well, let's stop. Let's just start half-assing it.
Right.
Because we can. You're just like, no, this is how and it works for us.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any reason to change. It's turned out to be, you know, one of those blessings.
I imagine having a foe, as you mentioned, also helps you position your brand, where you can position it as, well, we're cheaper than those guys,
Right.
we're higher quality than those guys. Because I know that price point is a big deal with P. Terry's. It is the value. It's the quality for the price point that you get. Did you feel like that was helpful, that you could come out and say, okay, you could go there and get this quality for that price, or you could come here and get this quality for this price?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's not something you even have to say. The customer figures it out.
Right.
And so, you know, when we opened, I mean, I had stopped eating at fast food places in big companies. My diet changed, and I didn't believe in a lot of what was happening, you know, for me. And so I had to go over and see what the heck they were serving and how much it was. And, you know, I had to get some sense of it, and also had to taste it because this was going to be my competitor. But you're absolutely right. In fact, I remember one food critic here said to me, I was saying, you know, my double meat is cheaper than a Big Mac. And boy, she cautioned me. She's like, "Well, wait a second, don't do that. You guys need to be around. So don't be so conscious of it. We'll pay more and everything." But we also had the advantage of not paying fees, and we do very little advertising and marketing.
Right.
But you're right. It had a lot to do with it. Especially when you're trying to serve a burger to the masses.
Right.
It doesn't work if all of a sudden you start everything $6. I mean, it's just not, you're not going to serve to the masses.
That 500 square foot location that you opened at first too, no dining room, right? Walk-up window?
No, it had a little patio on the side.
And was that the model you were aiming for? I mean, was that walk-up window, stand, drive-through idea?
You know, no, it wasn't. What it was the location.
Okay.
And I'd missed it in 2000. I'd missed it by a week. And somebody else got it and ended up not doing anything with it for 5 years. It literally sat vacant, but they were paying their rent, and so the landlord couldn't do anything about it. And it was, it was never that well planned out. I just kept thinking, for some reason, that's just where I want to start this. This is just, and looking back, and again, it's probably more luck than smarts, but to have something that size is controllable. I mean, heck, it's just a food truck, right? 500. I mean, it's not that much bigger,
right?
And so it was controllable, especially when you're learning the business, and so it turned out to be extremely helpful to do that. But yeah, it was. We had at the time we had a single drive-through lane. You had to you had to go through one window on one side, and then go around to the other side to pick up your food and pull out. And then we had a walk-up window in the front, and on the weekends, the line in the front would be so long that there had to be a space in between the line to allow the cars to go around.
Logistic headache.
Yeah, and thank God nobody got hurt. Yeah. But yeah, it was, and I have to tell you that, having, and most of our restaurants now are double lines, but having a single line at the time and having that line thank God, go to the street a lot, draws customers.
That's right.
They see that line and they think there must be something there. Yeah. So they get in line to check it out.
Best kind of marketing you can do, right?
It really is. Yeah. It really is. And at Lamar and Barton Springs, it's just kind of such a central location.
Sure. So I remember when I came to Austin for the first time a couple years back, and I saw P. Terry's. I would have guessed it had been here for 50 years.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and there's something about the design, which I know is intentional, but even just that idea of a burger stand is very Americana. It's very nostalgic. Was that intentional?
Absolutely. Okay. That's the one thing I was sure of. The Googie architecture, which we use, is timeless, and so you walk up today and you don't know when that restaurant was built, and my hope is you'll walk up 20 years from now and not know when the restaurant was built, and I think there is a comfort level in that feel, that timeless feel. And so, yeah, that was absolutely intentional, and I worked. That was the one thing I was sure of. This is how I wanted to look, and so we were able to do it, and I love, the biggest compliment I can get is when a customer walks up to me and says, I can't remember what my life was like, what my family's life was like before P. Terry's. And that's pretty cool because, there's a trust that people have with the quality of the food that we serve, and so it makes it all pretty satisfying.
Sure. You opened that first restaurant. What was the response from Austin? Did they embrace it right away?
It was a minor hit for the first year.
Okay.
But it didn't happen right away. We put the monument sign that's up there went up about 2 weeks before we opened, and in 2005 there was no social media. There was nobody talking about stuff. It just didn't happen, and so in fact when we placed a want ad in the classified in the newspaper to get help, there wasn't any other choice. And so the sign became our, where people would drive by it and we weren't open, but here was this giant sign that they couldn't look up and figure out what it was. They were going to have to pull in if they were going to try it. And so we got customers originally from there, and then the ones who came, we would literally see some of them twice a day. I mean, it was just so new and refreshing to pull up and for $1.50 get a hamburger that was this Black Angus all natural meat. I mean, it just wasn't around.
Right.
And we're slicing the tomatoes as we're serving the food. Heck, we were patting the meat. we were pattying the meat as fast as and it was going on the grill as fast as we could patty it. We were doing it all by hand. So there was a lot, there was excitement, but it definitely took a while to grow. Definitely.
It seems like you had to do maybe grassroots, word of
all
mouth,
grassroots.
stuff like
that.
It was
all grassroots. You would see a perfect example is there was a high school down the street from us, and the kids would come over during the day, and I was there for the first 2 or 3 years, pretty much all the time.
Right.
And so you'd see that same kid in the evening, and he would have brought his parents, or he'd brought his girlfriend or his brother or sibling, and you'd look over and go, oh, I know, he was here, and now he's introducing it to somebody else, and to be to witness that every day, and it's really, really a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Because you never know what the hell is going to happen. I mean, you just don't.
Yeah.
Everybody looks back and goes, oh, of course you were going to kill it. No, I didn't know.
Well, you had already closed 2 businesses. So, I mean, at this point,
yeah.
Were you scared of that?
I wasn't scared. I actually sold my pizza places, so I got out. I didn't. But no, I don't think, when I decide that I'm going to do something, I've gotten to this point in my mind that I'm ready to do it. And I've always said that you at some point take a leap of faith and jump, and you're looking for a soft landing, but you can't worry about it once you've taken the jump. Now it's the total concentration is on getting it done and being successful, however that takes.
Yeah.
And I just was reading Phil Knight's book on Nike, Shoe Dog, I think that's what it's called. And there's a great line, and I'll butcher it, but where he's talking about when you're competing, you have to forget that you're competing, because you're so, entranced in this, what you're doing, that you're not even thinking about the fact that you're competing. And I read the paragraph like 3 times, because it was like, I've never thought of it that way, but that's really what, when I opened it up, it was just head down. Every customer is the most important thing in the world. And I mean, we would screw up an order, and I think the world would come to an end. I'm like, oh God, now we're done. Oh my God, I can't believe we did that.
Right.
And it was, we left a tomato off a burger,
right.
And I just, so yeah, that's how I look at it.
Thankfully, this was before Yelp too. So.
Oh God, no kidding. Oh my God, and I bleed for what we've become today, because it takes a while. It takes a while to get the kinks out, and boy, does it anyway.
You mentioned that you were in the restaurant a lot in those first couple of years. I mean, was there a quality level you were just trying to make sure you were hitting?
Yeah, I always had in my mind how I wanted it to taste and how I wanted it to look, and so then I just kind of was looking for the right people to work alongside me that understood what it was about and got it. Whether it was out of just pride or professionalism, they were going to move that along the way I was hoping it would look. But yeah, no, I always had an idea, and of course we were doing these fresh cut Idaho potatoes, and they're a bear. I mean, it's a monster, and very few chains do that particular potato fresh, and we butchered it for a couple of years. I mean, we couldn't figure out how to do it, and then we finally did. I'd be on the phone with the University of Idaho, the potato department.
Sure, yeah.
Literally, who'd ever answer the phone? And I'm like, the potatoes are brown and they're mushy, and he goes, oh, you got too much sugar. And I go, how do I get the sugar out?
Right.
We'd have these, conversations, and panic in my, and then, one of the nice things about, if you can get over that initial hill and you can get bigger, you have some power because of your size.
Right.
And the grocer has to pay attention to you, because now it's starting to be a number that he's interested in.
Right.
Initially, nobody really cares. They figure you're going to be out of business in a year anyway, so COD and good luck.
Right.
And I can remember saying on more than one occasion, man, if I can just get 2 or 3 of these, they'll have to respect me. They'll have to pay attention to me, because we would change grocers every 6 months. And it was just, So yeah, getting over that, and being in the restaurant every day is the best thing that ever happened, because not only did I learn my customers and they got to know me, but I got to know all the employees, and I got to know what everyone was going through, because I was going through it with them. And it led to who we are today. It's the culture was really created in those first few years. We're really proud of how we take care of our employees, and the 2 things that really stick out the most, the 3 things, is we give a Christmas bonus to everyone. And the first Christmas, everybody got $50, and there was, 12 people I think we were open that day. Just didn't know what to do. And we're freezing our ass off. Yeah. Because it's the heat never worked, and it's Christmas Day, and we gave everybody $50, and we made breakfast and visited. And I remember my dad saying, if you give a Christmas bonus, you can never not give a Christmas bonus. And so this last December, we went from $70 to $120,000.
Wow.
And this last year, and these are all lower level. This isn't managers' bonuses. That's not included in this.
Sure.
This is guys serving fries and taking orders, and they're paid. Their bonus is based on how many months they work for us. So every month you work for us, it adds $10 to the pot. And so, we have people working for us for 15 years.
Yeah.
So, they're getting pretty decent little bonus. But it was based on, we got to give these people something. We're just, they're here every day. We know them, and then we do the non-interest loans to all of our employees. And at any given time, we can have $30,000, $40,000 out in loans. And we don't charge interest, because we just don't kind of do that.
Yeah.
And by the way, the banks aren't giving me anything anyway. So, and I'm fortunate enough to have money in the bank. So, but that was started because Vinny, who was doing fries at the time and still works for us today, this is 14 years ago. Vinny's truck broke down, and I didn't want to do fries that night. And I worked really hard, and I hate fries. God, it's because we're cutting them and we're soaking them, and then we're blanching them, and then it's tough,
demoralizing.
It's really hard, especially if you've been working all day and now you're going to work fries that night. And I said, Vinny, well, what's wrong? He said, well, my truck's broken. And well, come to work. And I can't. My truck's broken. So get in a cab. I'll pay for the cab fare. And then he got there and told me what he needed, $150 to get the truck fixed. And I was like, well, here's $150. I mean, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And so, I started loaning money out. And finally it was, well, maybe I ought to write it down, because I don't have a great memory. And then maybe we ought to come up with a system of how you would repay us. And so we started taking it just out of paychecks. And, well, I can't, take 25 a week out of my paycheck. Okay, all right, whatever you can afford, because if I take too much, we're going to go right back to you needing money. So that doesn't do any good. And then the third thing is every employee to this day gets a birthday cake on their birthday. Huh. And that happened because Rosario was working, and as she was leaving her shift, everybody wished her happy birthday. And my wife turned and said, I didn't know it was your birthday. And she said, I've been working alongside you all day today, and I didn't know it was your birthday. And so it was like, well, come tomorrow and we'll have a cake for you. And then we wrote down everybody's birthday. And now when you fill out your application to work for us, one of the questions is, what's your favorite cake? and you tell us what kind of cake you want on your birthday.
Does that give them pause?
It does. There's usually a question.
Yeah.
Why do you care? And now, and my wife Kathy made for years. She baked every cake,
Wow.
and I would deliver it. And when we got to 300, it was almost one a day, and which means
Might have like 10 on one day.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly right. And so I would come home, and I'd sit down. Whoa, don't go anywhere. You got cakes to deliver. Are you kidding? No, you got cakes to deliver. Crap. So now I'm off to deliver, and we sing happy birthday. We blow out a candle. I mean, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And it just got overwhelming. We have 2 kids. And so the first employee we ever hired, by the way, there's a common thread through everything. We hang on to people. We really do just hang on to people. And Susie was the first person we ever hired, and she would count our money and do the deposits for us. And she started in our house. She would come in the morning and I'd have the money from the night before, and she would do everything and pay bills. And so now, because we've gotten bigger, and I think we have like 700 employees now, Susie is the full-time cake baker and delivers it in a company car.
Full-time.
That's her job. And we lease a car for her, and she goes to she's driving all over every day.
You've got to brand that. P. Terry's birthday cakes. Just slap a sign on the
Not
car.
Another idea, my wife will kill me. And again, it's the biggest worry, and everybody that's in the restaurant business has the same worry, and that is as you grow, what happens to your culture. Mm-hmm. And so if you're able to keep those main things, if we never stop loaning money interest-free, if we never stop Christmas bonuses, if we never stop birthday cakes, other things may change, but those 3 things really can help to define who you are and what you do. Yeah. And it's never for the sake of doing things differently. It's just that's what we saw while we were. And if we hadn't been working every day, none of those things would have happened.
Right.
I mean, they just wouldn't.
It's very authentic to you. I mean, you've only systematized something that was created authentically and originally.
Absolutely. And by the way, before anyone tries to pat me on the back or thinks I'm patting myself on the back, it's not a bad way to do business.
Right.
And to keep your employees. When you get kicked out of an apartment because you've just had an argument with your roommate and you don't have a place to stay, and you need $600 to put a deposit down and partial month's rent, and your employer hands you $600 without asking really many questions and saying, pay me back when you can, the employee will think twice about leaving because he knows that this may happen again to him, and will the next employer do it? And unfortunately, so many, I obviously I have a different life than so many of the people that work for us. And I don't worry about that. But I damn sure know that they do. And I'm aware of it. And so being aware of it keeps me in touch with them. And I'd like to think they know that.
So what's so interesting about all this is, I know there's some other like fast casual companies out there that I know have, do benefits and things for their employees, but they're also serving $13 bowls.
Right.
You guys are doing $6 hamburgers.
Yeah. Well, we're doing $3.95.
Right.
That's the most expensive hamburger is $3.95.
How do you pull this off?
Well, you do it. First of all, you never let. I want to say you never let money get in the way. But I'm running a business, and I recognize it. But it's always based on patience. It's always based on doing the right thing, and counting on the customer, counting on the employee to take care of the customer because he appreciates where he works, And even though nobody may be looking, he still gives a damn. Mm-hmm. And the customer recognizing that and appreciating what we do, as well as the service they're getting and the food and all that, and then letting it grow. And, if the truth is, if the line weren't to the street, we couldn't do any of this. We're just very lucky that the line's to the street. So it's just sheer volume. But there's always that balance. I would rather have a $3.95 double meat cheeseburger and a line to the street than a $6 cheeseburger and pray that people walk in.
Yeah,
I just would. And so we've been, very, very fortunate about that. The other thing is that all of our money, I mean, you're sitting in our glorious offices right now,
yeah.
Sam. We're in a commercial park.
Uh-huh.
Our commissary's next door. We have a half a dozen people working in this office. Our G&A is next to nothing mm-hmm. because this isn't where the action is. Action's in the restaurants. And the people that are in this office, they're treated great. I think they're paid well, and I think they love it here. But we don't need a lot of them, and not here, not mm-hmm. doing this. And so, kind of the focus is all about that. And I've just, I think we've saved a lot of money by not playing big shot or trying to impress anyone. And so it allows, it's funny. I still, I pay for every meal. I walk in, I buy my meals. There's no high, give me my, it's so I think that's just everywhere, mm-hmm. And we're tight about stuff. We don't waste money, and it allows us to do that kind of stuff.
Sure. I imagine on the real estate front too, because you are focused on smaller footprints. You are very right. focused on drive-through. Does that help you streamline the operation in that way too?
It does a lot of ways. We have several drive-through onlys, and then we have some sit-downs. And the drive-through onlys are a lot easier to manage. Yeah. As you say, they require a smaller space. The overhead's a lot less. I think you have to have a dining room to build your brand. I don't think people can fall in love with you. It's harder to fall in love with you if you never get out of your car. You appreciate the convenience and the price and the food and all that, but our goal has always been for you to love us. It's never been for you to like us. If you like me or like the food or like the P. Terry's and somebody opens up across the street, well, I'll go check them out. I mean, I like P. Terry's, but I'll go check them out. If you love us, you're less likely to go check them out.
Yeah.
And then if you go over there, you're more likely to come back because you love us. Mm-hmm. And so, it's that constant, I'm chasing the dog chasing the car. I've got to catch up. You've got to love us. What will it take for you to love us? It's why, every customer, when they get their food, there's a sticker and it says, how did we do? And it has a text number. Well, I get every text. And then the VP of operations gets every text. And then the area director gets the text from his or her 5 restaurants. And then the manager gets the text from that restaurant. But I get every one. And so, this goes back to not taking any customer for granted and not saying, oh, it's okay, we're going to mess up a burger, or they'll come back, or we'll get a new customer. It's like, no, we had a customer, and we want that customer to be happy. And if they're not happy, I hope they text, because I know we'll take care of them.
Yeah.
And often, we have 3 different people monitoring the texts, not at the same time, but it allows us to answer texts 7 days a week, day and night. I mean, I'll be seeing you lying in bed, and I'll see, I'm a moron. I'm looking at my phone.
Sure.
I ought to be doing something else when I'm not. And I'll see, hey, you forgot my fries. I ordered a burger and fries. I got home, and there are no fries. And 11 o'clock at night, one of our employees texts and says, I'm sorry, send me an address, and we'll mail you a coupon. And I'm thinking, God, somebody's working at 11 o'clock at night. and it's great because the faster you can respond, obviously, the more meaningful it is, especially if you're stewing when we screwed something up.
Right.
So yeah, it's that constant need to get it right. It's that it's never enough. We just live in that world and we accept it. Mm-hmm. That's just the world we live in.
Well, even more so now that social media is out there.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, the megaphone came around a few years after you guys opened up.
No question. It's huge impact, and people can be vicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're also trying to get out in front of that.
Right.
Absolutely. Before they can post a thing and go, boy, these guys are idiots.
Yeah.
If I can get to you fast enough to send you a gift card, you're less likely to call me an idiot.
That's right, yeah. 2005, kind of looking back, comparable to your pizza days, 2005 felt like it was sort of the right before the Better Burger thing took off. So I don't know if Five Guys was here yet then.
They weren't in Austin.
And Hot Toddy, I don't know if
Hot Toddy came along
later.
Of course they started here. They came along a few years later. And we were really sitting in an unusual space because the Better Burgers weren't here. And I think Five Guys had been around, but they weren't here.
Yeah.
And so really we were just competing directly against the national chains. Mm-hmm. And we were serving fresh meat and Black Angus and at the same price, if not less. So we were kind of in the catbird seat. It was good. It was good timing.
Did that help you to fuel growth? How quickly did the stores start opening then? I mean, I assume you were building a fan base.
Well, we were, and of course, the good news is that nobody returned my calls when I was trying to get another location because I'm always out too soon.
Yeah.
And so by people literally ignoring us for the first few years, we didn't open up the second store till at least maybe the end of the third or beginning of the fourth year we were open.
Wow.
So, and it turned out to be, of course, smart.
Yeah, right.
Because we weren't ready. We really weren't. We hadn't gotten the French fries down. We hadn't gotten management down. I'm a lousy manager, and I was in charge, which is dangerous.
Were you still working in the restaurants every day?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah. And I finally stopped doing the schedule. I gave somebody else the schedule to do the schedule. Kathy did the schedule for the longest time. And then I think I did it for a while, and I was terrible at it. And, it's just I can't – it's the focus. I've got other things on my mind.
Yeah.
And so but what I learned is that I'd see a for lease sign and I'd call the broker and the broker didn't want to talk to me. He wants to talk to another broker. And so nobody would call me back. Mm-hmm. And also they either hadn't heard of P. Terry's or they considered it maybe there was a one-off deal. Mm-hmm. And we were in South Austin. So I would talk to people in North Austin. They're like, yeah, that works in South Austin. I'm not sure it'll work here. And so we got a lot of pushback originally. And so we actually cut our own deal for the second location where we went out. The property was for sale. We went out and found a buyer. We didn't have the money. We went out and found a buyer and with the agreement that he was going to buy it and I would lease it from him.
Okay.
And so we put the deal together ourselves. And so, yeah, we were it allowed for us. And then number 3 followed number 2 almost immediately.
Okay.
We got lucky. We got lucky, but Long John Silver's A&W Root Beer concept went out of business. And it's funny we just don't dance on graves, and,
sure.
and there's kind of a sick feeling because the franchisee is a friend. We became friends through the deal, and I just felt terrible for it because when you're on the front line, it's hard to root against anybody. You're so busy dodging bullets, and you're all kind of doing it together.
Right.
So yeah, once that started. 3 started, and then it just started to kind of fall in place.
That was right around the time of the recession.
Yes.
Did that affect things?
No, okay. It didn't, and it's what's given me comfort in this, in our expansion in the future, is what I found is at our price point, we sell more food between 4 o'clock and closing than we do from opening to 4. So for a fast food place to sell more dinner than lunch is a sign that people are comfortable enough with your quality that they're going to serve it to their family for dinner.
Right.
Which is a whole nother deal than I'm going to run by lunch and get something really fast. And so when the recession hit, what we found is that, the people that were in good times and, they were on the cusp and the recession affected them, they may stay home and eat ramen noodles. They drop down to, I'm just going to stay home and make some mac and cheese.
Right.
And the people who were eating at, Applebee's and Chili's and were spending $40 for dinner for their family, dropped down and spent $20 for dinner with us for their family.
Yeah.
So what we found is that, and then when times are good, the ramen noodle crowd moves up to us. And, it just all kind of follows that way.
Sure.
So we, knock on wood, we kind of feel like we're recession-proof in that regard.
Yeah. I wonder, too, if it helped. I mean, at that time, unemployment started to go up. Maybe you had better employees you could go recruit.
It does help. I mean, we're at 2.5% right now, unemployment in Austin.
Yeah.
And it's we're just stealing from each other.
Right.
And it's brutal. It's
right.
just there's nobody out there looking for a job, so you got to go find somebody who's, unhappy at their job or crappy at their job, and you're still going to try and give them a chance because you got to have a body in there.
Because that's the thing. You guys really require a higher level of employee, I assume, right?
We do.
So how can you keep that up, especially in times like this? Yeah,
well, a lot of it is well, first of all, we pay aggressively. We pay as much as everybody else. In many regards, we're in the $11.50 to $12, $13, $14, depending on experience and position. But it's those other things. I told you about the interest-free loans and the birthday cake, and so it's not that somebody says, "Hey, I heard I can get an interest-free loan here. I want to come work here." What they've heard is their friend or their cousin or their brother or sister says, "This is a good place to work. You should come work here with me." And so that allows it. But the other thing is that it isn't just enough to offer those things and then turn around and be a jerk. That decimates any goodwill you've created by those little programs I've talked about. So we really have a no politics, no BS zone here where nobody plays games. And they're not allowed to, and the restaurant business is full of jerks. I mean, it just is, and people with egos, and they like to knock down the little guy and makes them feel better. And the fact that everyone has access to my phone number, I would think would give a shift leader or an assistant manager or even a manager who's having a bad day and wants to take it out on somebody to probably not, because it's an employee can literally go into the bathroom, pick up, grab their phone and call me, and get my attention. Yeah. And so, I'd like to think that that's never necessary, but I do know it's out there. And our VP of operations is in touch with everything. She took the job. We brought her from Colorado. She took the job. And she told me later, we had a 2-hour interview. We were talking about a lot of things. And she said, I took the job because when I ask you what your company mantra is, what your motto is, what your belief is, it was simply just to do the right thing. And she said, that's what I've always wanted to do. And so she follows that same thing. And, she'll come in and we talk about an employee and says, the employee did not have a good day yesterday, but here's the background. This is what happened at home. This, blah, blah, blah. So, it's discussed in depth. And it doesn't always work out. People don't always get, it's not a panacea. You're going to have people that are going to come and go. But there is always an effort to look at that person as a human being, and that has other things going on in their life, and how we can help them or allow them to fit in with us. Sometimes it's just not a fit,
Right.
but there's always an effort.
You are clearly a very hands-on restaurant owner, but refreshingly so, because, I mean, there are people out there who just want to, grow something to make a quick buck or whatever,
Right.
which if they're doing it in restaurants, they chose the wrong industry.
Yeah,
But
good luck.
So I know you're setting up now your management team. You've got a new CEO. You've got all these pieces in
Right.
place. I imagine that's so that you can gradually pull yourself out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I want to pull myself out of a lot of the day-to-day stuff that goes on in the office that I don't enjoy doing, and I'm not particularly good at it. My best trait is I know what I'm not good at. I'm well aware of it. Nobody has to tell me. Mm-hmm. I know. And so as we were expanding and we were about to leave Austin, I've never done that before. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy that likes serving burgers, fries, and shakes, and I love being in the restaurant. We had a UT LSU football game here a couple of weeks ago, a home game, and this city was just packed. It was very exciting. And as the game ended, I drove over to the closest P. Terry's that I knew would be hit. And I stayed for 2 hours. And at 1 a.m, I came home, with milkshake all over me. I just made shakes. You guys do the rest. I'll just make shakes. And visited with customers. And I'm in heaven. And the funny thing is that my wife never called. Where are you? She knew exactly where I was. So I think the expansion is bringing Todd in as the new CEO and allowing him to do what he's really good at. He's very organized. He's done this before. He's worked at Whataburger and Taco Cabana, came from Lark Burger. This is right down his alley. He plots this and works well with people and sets times and limits and meetings and stuff, all the stuff I don't do, and communicates well and brings everyone in. And, I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur, and that's just not how I visualize what an entrepreneur does. I think of him as being more, or her as being more creative and getting into the nitty-gritty stuff. And so what I think it's going to do is allow me to do that, and to go save my energy to go make milkshakes late at night.
I'll never forget last time I was in Austin, we had lunch at a P. Terry's, and I'll never forget that I just was watching you. You were constantly watching your customers make sure they were having a good time,
Right.
and several times you got up to go welcome them or ensure. I mean, it seems like that really brings you life. Is that?
Oh, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
it is. I could not be happier. It's crazy, but it. I was a little sad. The business started to drop off. It was about 10 after 1 in the morning, and the game had been over for a couple hours, and I knew it was really funny when UT lost, and so the restaurant had more LSU fans in it because nobody wants to go home when you win,
Right.
and we sell more milkshakes when you win. I mean, it's funny. People just want to
Celebratory.
Yeah, it is. And I was a little sad. It started to slow down because by the way, I'm the guy that starts around 9 o'clock, starts thinking about going to bed. So for me to be out at 1 and still just be going and yeah, it does bring me life.
Yeah.
It's absolutely it's a great feeling. And the other thing is that, we never take any of this business for granted. Mm-hmm. I mean, people walk up and, what's it like to, we got 16 P. Terry's and what's it like? And I'm like, oh, it's the same as it was when we had one. I mean, it's the same worry, the same, take care of the customer. So it's never, I never sit back and I'm not the guy leaning back smoking a cigar, playing big shot.
Has it been hard to scale all of these things, though?
Yeah. The best thing I've got is a crappy memory. So I get to forget a lot of it. I really do. I really do. I shake it off pretty fast. There's some stuff that sticks. But yeah, it was really hard. It was a lot of hours. It was a lot of learning. We were very fortunate that especially starting in South Austin, which was it's changed in the last 14 years, but it was kind of the original Austin had settled in South, and they just rooted for us. They really did. I mean, I can remember just feeling awful that we did this, and the guy looked at me and goes, "It's okay. I'll be back. Don't worry. I'm going to be back. I promise." And it was that sense, and I think they also saw how hard we were trying.
Yeah.
I think that's when someone spots that, then I think they're going to give you a break. Mm-hmm. So we saw that.
So you opened 15 in Austin, right?
Yeah.
Before then, you opened number 16 in San Marcos.
Right.
Now you're going to San Antonio. Growth more around Texas now. What would you describe what P. Terry's is to Austin, and then how do you translate that to other places?
That's a great question. Well, I think we are a part of the community, and and that's saying something in Austin because there are a lot of things that have been around here for a long time, and Austin takes a lot of pride in those things that are established and make up the community, and I think we've been accepted in that, and a lot of it is we give back 4 times a year all the profits from 4 days. The end of the year we'll have surpassed $1 million, and it's all local charities that we donate to. Wow. And it's small charities. It's a woman that started a diaper bank on her own.
Wow.
It's handing her a check and saying, "Go buy more diapers."
Uh-huh.
And so even though we got 1 million plus people here, we've always kind of thought of it more as Mayberry. We're going to just and so obviously that gets harder in a San Antonio and it gets harder in a Houston, but it's not impossible. And it can even start in that in the area around that first P. Terry's. When we started this giving back, which was my wife's idea, frankly we were just so astonished that people kept coming back to our restaurant, because we really thought for the longest time we were just awful. and people kept trying us and forgiving us, and we kept working. That Kathy finally said, we have to give something back. These people just keep coming. These people are so nice. And we picked a little community center in South Austin, just a tiny, and we just said, this Saturday, whatever we make, we're going to give to you. And I remember Kathy looking at the amount and saying, "That's it?" I'm like, "Sweetie, we got one burger stand." And she said, "Well, you got to give them more than that." So, we gave them a little bit more, and so we became known in the area for that. Mm-hmm. And from that it expanded. So we didn't look at it and say, "Okay, this is what we're going to do for all of Central Texas or all of Austin." We looked at it and said, "What can we do in this neighborhood that we live in, that we trade in?" Mm-hmm. And so, my hope is that we'll do that in these other cities, and over the course of time have that same effect.
Yeah. Last question for you, Patrick, is looking back at your career and everything you've learned, what is your advice to young entrepreneurs getting into this business? Back, at that point where you were in 2005, working in the burger stand, what's your advice to those people?
Well, it's really simple. I think the reason, and I just turned, I think I'm 61. I think
back to that bad memory.
I think that's right. I'd like to think I was 50, but I'm not. And I started this business, in my mid-40s, and I had taken all this experience of all my past and put it into this one, and what I did differently at P. Terry's that I didn't do in my other businesses is that I never once said, "Wow, I bet if I do this, I can get rich. I'll bet I'll make X, and then I can go buy this, and I can drive this, and I can live in this." Never once. What we said was, Well, I'm dumb enough to put my name on it, so now it's going to be associated with me. This is going to be, the best burger stand we can make it, and we're going to take this foundation of customers, which is really one at a time. I don't think it's any different today than it was then. It's every day, it's building your foundation, raising it up by each customer, and taking care of each customer. I don't recall the first, oh my God, Sam, I'm embarrassed to tell you this. For years, the P&L would be the guy in charge of my numbers that worked for me, and he was with me for 7 years. He would run the numbers from the month before and walk in and go, "We had a good month." And I go, "Great." Never ask him what the hell that meant. Never. I didn't, because he's a serious guy. He was an honest guy. And if he said we had a crappy month, you better get to work.
Take him at his word.
Do something different. Yeah. Then I would have said, "Oh crap! What happened? Let's take a look at this." But literally, he would just say, "We had a good month," and I go, "Great, okay, back to work. Let's go have another good month." Mm-hmm. And I didn't take money out of the business, and we just kept putting it back in. And whenever literally, I would, okay, I need money for my mortgage, so I'll take a little money out and pay my mortgage, or I have a car payment, mm-hmm. or but it was just what I needed to live off of, and it was, it was all about that. It really was. I get asked every once in a while by, people that are younger than me that are starting a business, to come look at their business. And it's, I'm always honored that they care about what I have to say, because I can tell you my wife didn't give a damn what I have to say, but that's a whole nother program.
That's right.
It's a whole nother hour. No, and I remember at the end of it, they had this great business and they're doing really well. And they talked about, there was kind of a half joke about selling the business and buying an island or buying this and that. And finally, I just shut them down. I said, "Guys, you can't talk that way. Even if it's a joke, just don't let that in the room. Mm-hmm. Just concentrate on that." And the money follows. If you're doing it all right, and you're taking care of the customer, and you're doing things fairly, and you're treating your people, everything else will follow. But if you put that out in front, I swear you think differently. You think, why am I putting 2 slices of tomato on when I could do it for 1? I mean, everything, it's just a slippery slope that just changes everything. We hire new employees that, they come in at a little more senior level, and the first thing they think they're going to do for me is save me money. I think I can save you money. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad if I'm doing something stupid, and because I don't want to waste money. Right. But, to tell me, we have a commissary here. Every morning at 6 a.m., those trucks go out to the restaurants serving fresh food. Don't tell me that we can do it every other day. Mm-hmm. Don't. I mean, what? So I can serve semi-fresh food? Right. I mean, that's not, So you got to be. That's my advice. Just let the money follow. Concentrate on the customer.
Good advice.
No.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Patrick, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Sam. It was a blast.
There you have it. That's my conversation with Patrick Terry of P. Terry's. As always, go to QSRmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need on the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. Go to QSRmagazine.com/podcast for the entire Fast Forward archive. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening to it, and please do provide feedback, either right there on the app, or please email me, sam@QSRmagazine.com. Would love to know your thoughts. We are excited for the year ahead in Fast Forward with lots of exciting guests to come, and we're so glad to have you along for the ride. That's all for today. We'll talk to you again next time.